Hi guys, number one Marmaduke fan here. I'm really liking the idea of combining a few mangas into one video because it gives me a chance maybe to step back and think about it for more than just, oh, here's the plot of the murder mystery today. Oh, he fought the bad guy and he beated the bad guy. And it lets me kind of look at some broad art topics across a few styles. And I'm probably going to start mixing in like I don't know, some Western comics into this too, so I can show how this is more than just Japanese material. But the theme I wanted to talk about for these three, Case Closed Volume 7, Bleach Volume 7, and DNA Angel Volume 2, are the elements of art and the principles of design. And I was so happy with Bleach. The reason I hadn't read it before is people kept saying, oh, it gets lame later, but the early volumes of Bleach are so good, you should look at it purely for a perfect illustration of the elements of art and the principles of design, especially how Tite Kubo uses emphasis in his composition. So the elements of art are basically your building blocks. You know, you got your shapes, your colors, and for manga, you've got black, white, and gray. Those are the objective building blocks that every black and white comic needs to use. The principles of design are a little bit more subjective and where your individual style comes in. So balance is an example of something where, generally speaking, most artists will have, maybe like a third black, they'll have a third white, and a third gray. And the reason you want that is you don't want a light and happy scene looking too dark. You don't want a dark and moody scene looking too light. You have to look at it and decide if basically these three things are working together well. But if you on purpose pump it up, then you can place emphasis on something. So I actually just drew these from memory from 3 pages that really stuck out to me in this volume. What Tite Kubo does is he will on purpose, this is really appropriate, right? Bleach, what does bleach do? It turns things white. What's the cover? It always has this blank white background. So I think in the comic especially, you can see how he likes to use solid black and solid white for artistic effect. So he'll have an all-white panel with a couple little black figures, doing their sword fight. And the result of that is you look right at the 2 black figures because they're the thing that's different from all the white. Or you'll have a big, moody black page with a thin little white panel where the character's hurt. Or you'll have like a sketchy gray panel where everything is, there's no solid blacks, there's no solid whites, everything is kind of loosely sketched out. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Bleach is he is using these 3 different kinds of emphases in different places for different effects. And it's really one of the best examples I've seen of it. I'm just going to flip through it really quick because I'd seen it a lot. It really stood out to me in this volume. I don't know why I marked everything. You know what? I'm not going to get caught up in talking about the story because I thought it was kind of fun that Detective Conan actually used this exact same little code where the kids would see the tanuki and then they take out the letter ta to figure out the code. I don't know. It was funny that they reused that. But this is a really good example of what I mean by the sketchy style, where this is probably what Tite Kubo's breakdown pencil style looks like, drawing lines over and over. Again, lots of spikes, but then lots of spikes around that, but then redrawing his line over and over again to give it kind of this energetic feel. And then he cleans it up in the inks, but it retains some of that, sharp, sketchy quality he has. So what I really like about it, number one, is he's not just drawing in a standard, everybody draw this way manga style. He has some roughness to it that really translates. Here's that gray page I was talking about earlier. So the little white here, little white on the face there, but almost no solid blacks on the whole page. And this is like a moment of defeat for him. I think I might have skipped over something. Let me just flip through it. Okay, here's an example of like an all-white composition. This actually isn't the best example, but you can see it here. Solid black, solid white to pump her out. Just from a narrative perspective, by the way, I really like how he's, having Ichigo be humbled and defeated. So even though he's got like this super duper spiritual strength, once he's defeated and he's essentially crippled and has to regain all his strength again through training. So to emphasize that, he has to fight a little girl who is super duper strong. He has to run away from her. So it adds insult to injury. It's a great little surprising scene. I've been thinking about the Andrew Klavan show a lot because I love that podcast. And he talks about how a lot of superhero stories, he doesn't like them because there's no difference between the men and the women. And I've been thinking about that a lot. But I think my defense would be just because you have a superpowered girl, that doesn't mean that she's not a girl and he's not a boy. Like this whole comedic thing throughout the fight where he doesn't want to hurt her because he's a little girl and he'd feel like a heel if he punched her out. It's just that she has this superpower that it adds comedy to the fight, but there's still like this really wholesome, sweet kind of gentlemanly aspect to Ichigo. He's a very sympathetic character. Okay, in something like this, you can see like lots of blank white backgrounds. He likes to do that, and then solid black patterns to pop things forward. It's just really fantastic artistically. Best example I've seen of that. Check out Bleach. So these next two, I mean, the review for Case Closed is always the same. Hey Kids Mysteries. I guess one thing that kind of stood out to me is I started thinking about 80s, 90s, and 2000s art styles and how that can be like generally true, but not always true. So Case Closed is an early 90s manga, but Gosho Aoyama has a gag manga style that he uses for cool mystery and adventure and catching the criminals stuff. But his conventions are often very cute, cartoony, and over the top, which means it actually looks very different from a lot of 90s manga of the time. So D and Angel is something I'd call a very typical Sailor Moon, sharp, edgy adventure manga of the era. Also, I was just thinking about Lieutenant Columbo, and then of course Lieutenant Columbo is the featured profile at the end of this. Gosho Aoyama he loves mysteries so much. He's seen every mystery show ever produced. It's a fantastic series. But D and Angel, I enjoyed it. D and Angel may be an example of something where I generally like the sharp 90s style a bit more than the kind of soft and fluffy 2000 style that would come later. But, just because you like the 90s doesn't mean everything was good about the 90s. Like I noticed, of course, he has a cutesy little bunny rabbit partner because every 90s manga had a cutesy little bunny rabbit partner to make plushies out of. It's got a ridiculous setup where anytime he feels feelings of romance, he transforms into the mysterious phantom thief, Dark. A lot of 90s manga had a ridiculous setup like that, maybe to add some comedic hijinks to it or to maybe like differentiate it, like the character would sneeze and change into something. And, this made a lot of them kind of goofy or charming in their way, but it meant that a lot of them kind of transparently had like this goofy twisteroo to it. Now, I actually wanted to praise this page because this helped me so much. My library doesn't have volume 1, so this lays out visually every relationship. So this guy is the son of a police detective. He wants to capture the mysterious Dark. This guy's also the son of a policeman, but he wants to be a journalist. He wants to investigate the story. These two are the same person. And then they explain the love quadrangle, if I remember geometry right. He loves her, and every time he feels feelings of love for her, he turns into him. He loves her, and every time he feels feelings of love to her, he transforms into him. She loves him. She loves him. The whole volume is basically the Peter Parker Spider-Man dilemma. Oh no, do I tell my girlfriend that I'm Spider-Man? Stretched out for a volume. And maybe another thing of 90s manga is a lot of them had like plot points that didn't get resolved. They were designed to go on forever. So I got a little annoyed by, the love, not triangle, but the love quadrangle, I guess. And it was a little on the nose, but still kind of utterly charming in its own way. So I guess what I'd say about D and Angel is I'd recommend it for the art. The art's really good, actually. But it's a very standard 90s, Sailor Moon inspired type of art. There's a lot of, I forgot the name of the manga artist, but the manga artist behind Ranma One Half and Inuyasha, there's a lot of inspiration of that style for Yukiru Sugisaki. So I enjoyed D and Angel. I'm going to keep reading it. I wanted to skip ahead a little bit and maybe show you a couple interesting things. Phantom Thief Lupin. The Phantom Thief, Gentleman Thief just keeps showing up everywhere. Japan is like obsessed with this character. I don't get it. But there's some... Okay, I marked this page for a reason. So, there's like this cool thing where they show the whole character when they're first introduced, so you can see their whole outfit. And maybe something 90s manga did is they like to play with conventions a bit, like have the comedic letters fall and bonk him on the head. This was maybe kind of a pretty inventive period where I think a lot of artists were trying to, on purpose, play with, new tools like the digital effects tools. They were trying to play with some of the conventions of the medium and push the boundaries a little bit. Why did I mark this? I don't know. I sometimes forget why I mark something, but something that I observe generally is there are a lot of really interesting pages in this one for showing like different camera angles. I think your boy Zach just talked about this. He talked about how something you want to do is not just, well, he's talked about this a lot. You don't just want to show flat angles, but you can actually, in a comic book, you don't have to show the wall if you don't want to. You could have the camera inside a wall and erase the wall in your drawing because it's drawing. You can do impossible things in drawing. And so this had some really interesting pages where the angle was changing really radically, and then you were kind of moving through the panels this way, and I really enjoyed that. The Demon Returns, I think, was a one-shot story where it has a really, really strong bit of inspiration from Inuyasha, where there's like the cool high school girl and her demon partner, and they have to go hunt some demons. I enjoyed it. I don't know if this ever became its own series or if it was just a one-shot, but it was an enjoyable, interesting thing. There was some experimentation, I thought, with, like the demons, very cool, action girl stuff, and having to hunt down the Oni. Yeah, it was interesting. So, So the reason what stood out to me about this is it's very much a 90s manga. If you wonder what was a 90s manga, DNA Angel kind of typifies that. But I'm always interested when someone kind of steps out of the boundaries a bit. So Gosho Aoyama, he steps out of the boundaries a bit because he's doing more cartoony gag manga. And Tite Kubo kind of steps out of the boundaries a bit because he's got like this sharp sketchiness to his style, and he's got this real emphasis on very simple, visually impactful compositions. But in contrast to DNA Angel, which maybe has like a bit more of an emphasis on, the camera going up and down and sideways and rotating down diagonally. I love it. The beauty of comics is not just the individual drawing style you have for the characters, but how you can also create an individualistic effect through the camera and positioning it. So these are both really solid examples, I think, but both completely unique in their own way. Definitely check out Bleach for what I talked about for illustration on emphasis. Three recommends. I'm really happy with all three of these. That's it. I'm number one Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. These are going back to the library. Love you. Catch you later.